All right, let's get started. Welcome to the January edition of the Patch Tuesday Support Group, a safe place to out yourself as Backstreet Boy fans, apparently. As is often the case, you're stuck with me, Jordan, and Jake. We're going to do what we always do, which is Jordan's going to make us all super, super duper sad.
No, I'm not.
And
You're going to be happy this month.
I'm going to be happy? Oh, okay.
Well, maybe. I don't know if you specifically will be happy, but some people might be.
Are you going to show us cool, beautiful graphs?
I might.
Okay. Well, that's nice. I'll enjoy that. And then I got a shit ton of news, and then we'll open it up and open the floor, and we'll let people ask questions. So with that, I give it away to you, Jordan. Start us off for this brand new year with your level of happiness.
Also, I realized the other day, Brian, I don't know if we ever commented on this, but we've been doing this now for almost 2 whole years. I realized when I was building the report, and I was like, oh, I have data now that goes almost all the way back to 2024.
Time. How does it work?
Which is kind of neat. And surprisingly enough, I'm going to go ahead and start a share out here once I figure out how does technology work.
It's the same button as the leave button.
Yeah, I know, right? It's right next to it. Same color and everything. It's great. Give everybody a second to be able to see that. I'll pull up chat so that people can inevitably tell me that they can't. First things first, here in the wonderful world of news that I would like to go over for us. So I do have our beautiful dashboard. It is back this month. So a couple of things. In terms of actual vulnerabilities that we have, depending on kind of how you count them, you get around about 126 to 107, depending on the exact date point that you start in and what exactly you're counting, whether you're counting revisions or not. So you'll see different news outlets will show anywhere from about 107 all the way to 126 unique vulnerabilities this month. There were 26 different monthly KBs that came out. In that bucket of vulnerabilities that we had, there were 8 that were marked as critical, 110 that were marked as important, and 7 that were marked as moderate. In the bucket, in terms of the impact that we have, we've got 2 denials of service, 57 elevations of privilege, 22 information disclosures, 22 remote code executions, 3 security feature bypasses, 5 spoofs, and 3 tampering items. Interestingly enough, as you're kind of looking at, I know I mentioned earlier in terms of actual total amount of over time, the number of CVEs now versus what came out back last year did drop by a non-trivial amount. And the same thing is true going all the way back to 2024. I think the numbers from 2024, it was almost up to 200. So there is an interesting, over time, the months compared back over the years does seem to be trending down over the past couple of years for Microsoft. Couple of things to pay attention to in the wonderful world of updates and things that have come out over this past month. There was a 9.9 that came out in the Azure Cognitive Service for Language. So if you are using any of the thing in the Azure Cog Service for Language stuff, that's the Azure AI Foundry bits and other things of that nature, that is something to be aware of. It's already fixed. It's already patched. On the event that you happen to be using it, it's CVE 2025-64663. You shouldn't need to do anything for it, though. The remote code executions, surprise, surprise, you'll never guess what product those happened to be in this month. So all of the things that have big, scary remote code execution bits, it's SharePoint. It's SharePoint Server 2019. If you were still running SharePoint Server 2019 on-prem, help you.
I don't really care what version. I don't really care what version SharePoint.
Yeah, that's also fair. If you're running SharePoint on-prem, just like, I'd like to pour one out for you, just in general. This point.
It was slightly funny in my research. I've talked about the Reddit's sysadmin Patch Tuesday mega thread. If I realize some people block Reddit, but you should definitely read that. There was a guy like expounding on how much he loved running Exchange on-prem and how he was like, dude, in 2019, this is easy. I love it. We're actually moving away from Exchange Online and moving to Exchange on-prem, and he loved it.
Was he lying to himself, or was this like a job security thing?
No, he was even
hurt them.
No, he was like, and he sounded somewhat, I mean, by my scale, new to the industry. He's like, well, I wasn't even around for the 2003 and 2010 days, like when it sucked. He's like, it's good now. It's like, okay. Anyway, sorry, I digress. But it was funny. Some guy was extolling the virtues of running Exchange on-prem, and I was just like, okay.
I mean, as much as I hate the Teams admin portal, like as an example, like I still wouldn't go back to Link 2013 on-prem.
Yeah. I don't know if I like anything to do with any of that. But all right. In general, most of the vulnerabilities that came out this month, with the exception, like I mentioned, of the Azure ones, are relatively standard fare. There's no one particular one from this month other than a couple of things that I know some people have mentioned here in chat around some of the Office stuff, as well as around, I think it was WVD. There was some stuff in WVD that came out that caused some issues, but there's not anything from a true security perspective in patches from Microsoft that was really truthfully, oh goodness, stop everything that you're doing right this second and go patch and fix this now. It was just pretty standard. There were some issues. You should have patched them, but nothing that made me cry and lose sleep immediately overnight. Jumping over into the world of third-party updates, we had more than a few. So this past month, we had 1,386 updates come out, of which 16 of them were Google Chrome, where surprising absolutely nobody by releasing an update almost every other day. 28 Fire Edges and 14 for Firefox and 12 for Opera. Unique vulnerabilities that came out in the past month, we had 45 of them. And we had 29 that repeated themselves periodically across a whole bunch of different products. In general, the 13th, as you can see from a couple of days ago, had the largest spike of updates that came out. We've started to see more and more and more that vendors are starting to follow the Patch Tuesday pattern over time, especially if they don't have a ton of major security updates, where they will start to bundle towards this Patch Tuesday. This has been kind of a continuing trend that we've noticed. I'm starting to feel a little bit bad for our AppCat team because they always seem to start to get slammed on Patch Tuesday as well now for just having to generate a ton of updates. It is kind of nice because it's adding a little bit more predictability. The only major update that I had seen out there from stuff other than, Google Chrome's tendency and Chromium's tendency to just have not great things, is there was a vulnerability for Notepad++. It was kind of sort of nasty in the self-updater. So you'll want to make sure that you get up to date on Notepad++ for any of you admins who are running around with that in your environment. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian so we can talk about the wonderful world of things. And there's way more interesting, I think, general IT infrastructure news and AI news and various other bits and pieces of that at the moment than there was in the world of security this month. There's a lot of happenings that seemed to happen when everybody got free time to do stuff over the break.
Yeah, you totally buried the lead on the Notepad++. If only we had a recommendation of how to solve that problem.
I know, right?
If only. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing. We're changing how we're doing sharing, so I'm supposed to say Leroy Jenkins before I start sharing. So now I have said that officially, and I can figure out.
The real question is, Brian, do you know the reference for that, correct? Or are you just saying it?
I have watched that video numerous times and have shared it with my offspring to ensure that it continues on in this world.
Fantastic.
But the real question is are you for the Horde?
Okay, that reference I do not get. We can work on this later.
We'll work on this off. We'll take this offline. We'll double click into that a little bit later, Brian.
I did show my kids the if you could dodge a ball, a wrench, you can dodge a ball thing yesterday. Plus, dodge ball is a game of exclusion and domination.
I don't know where we're going with this, but
I don't know.
I appreciate
this is just great quotes that you should share with people. Anyways, okay. Let's talk about things that happened. So back in October, the CUs broke the network mirroring on WSL, which is the Windows subsystem for Linux. I suspect not a lot of you are doing a lot of that, but if you have anything running in WSL, and I would call out specifically if you have, I suspect this would really, really be bad for, what's the DO? What's DOINC now? The Microsoft Connected Cache for Enterprise. If you're running, that runs in WSL, I presume this impacted it. So this goes back to October, but the January version no longer lists this as a known issue. So I think they have finally fixed that if you were impacted by that.
Doesn't this impact you if you were running WSL for running containers as well, though, locally?
Sure. Good call. Yeah, if you're
for PowerShell development.
Well, PowerShell, but even it isn't Docker for
Docker. Yeah, Docker's another one. Yep.
Yeah, good call. But I mean, if you're running Docker, maybe you don't need your Docker. Yeah, I guess you had Docker containers and they needed to talk to the internet. I guess that's going to be a bad juju. Anyways, the point is, if you're impacted, supposedly this month they finally fixed that, despite it being a thing since October. Also, despite being end of life last year, they have released security updates for Office 2016. So I believe I saw in the chat someone asked about the brave souls running end of life software. If you're a part of that, hey, awesome, you have updates for Office. Isn't that nice for you?
Wasn't that the last version of Office that also allowed you to just use a straight serial key and not tied to a subscription?
Well, so that's the MSI version, right? So, we're probably saying the same thing, Jake. But that is the last version of it that had a non-click to run option. My understanding is those updates are for the MSI version, not the click to run version. But I'll be honest, I didn't dig quite that deeply, but it's definitely.
Looks like Mitch confirmed you in the chat that it is strictly for the MSI. So cool.
Okay, awesome. That is the assumption that I jumped to. Now we get to the thing that I think, Jordan, you called this out. It was called out in the chat. Last month's December's updates broke the Microsoft app, the wonderfully named Microsoft app, and basically prevented that app from connecting to Azure Virtual Desktop or Windows 365, which is based upon that. There was a known issue rollback released. You have to go into the message center to get those links. I hate sharing the message center links because Jake and Jordan won't even let me read the message center at Patch My PC. So I give you a URL, you might get access denied because it's super secret that whether or not something's broken in your environment.
Today I learned we were withholding more permissions from Ryan. I'm here for it.
And oddly enough, when this thing is done, I'll have even less permissions. The key thing here is and we were talking about this chat. My understanding is you need to apply the KIR to the thing that's connecting to the remote desktop. Also, funnily enough, the old remote desktop software was just fine and had no problem. So if you had not yet moved over to the Windows app, I'm told you were fine. Sorry, I said December. I meant January's. So January's updates introduced this problem. There's a KIR released, and the article I'm linking to says here that they think they are actively working on an out-of-band update. So hopefully we'll see that soon. So anyways, if you're impacted, know that's the thing. Another thing that came up is, and I got a message on this from Message Center. Wait a minute. I'm out of order here. Well, I'm not. The message queuing thing. So this has been a while. There was in December, the December releases created this message queuing issue for IIS. So this is primarily for your servers, as I understand it. And that got fixed. There wasn't out-of-band patch for that, but it was December, so maybe you didn't pay attention because you were not working. But that will be included so there's out-of-band patch that will be included and fixed in this month's updates, just so you're aware. This one, for a couple of months now, I guess, there's been a SQLite vulnerability, and various AV and EDR solutions have flagged this specific DLL. So this is the WinSQL 3. As I read it, I think Microsoft is calling that a false positive. They're saying, well, no. Yes, SQL 3 has it, but this is our own version of it, and it's part of the OS. And I think what they're basically saying is, no, that's a false positive. It's actually not a problem. But they went and changed it somehow anyways, to try and fix that false positive. I don't know. I'm a little confused on the details, but there's been threads and threads about, hey, this is a problem. There's a component of Windows, because this is in, somewhere under the Windows directory. And people are telling Microsoft this is a problem. And so this month fixes that problem. I'm not sure why I have this up here and not elsewhere, but here we are. Normally I would put this somewhere else. If you are using Palo Alto's PAN OS, so their Global Protect Gateway or portal, they have kind of a moderate vulnerability. It's only 7.7, so it's not the worst, not the greatest. You will want to go ahead and apply the updates according to SIG. I don't know why I sorted that up there. Usually I have a whole security section, but here we go. Let's talk about some stuff that happened just in Microsoft in general. This one was interesting. This got talked about right after our December session, but there's now native NVE in Windows Server 2025, and I was kind of confused by this. My understanding is basically the implementations they had of this previously were all based on basically backporting to SATA. So it's is it an NVE drive? Sure. Is it faster? Yes. But the protocol being used basically got backported to SATA for backwards compatibility. And what they're basically saying is okay, well, we're going to drop that, and we're not going to be saddled with that level of backward compatibility. And in doing so, we will get a huge performance lead. Now, again, that just seems kind of crazy to me. That seems so dumb that it's wrong. It's how is it possible that you, in your server OS, that you wouldn't maximize drive performance? But here we are. So, if you're still running on-prem servers, it's a good thing to go take a look at, especially if you're running 2025. Related to that, here's an announcement about doing hardware accelerated BitLocker. That really just means you can have a system on a chip, or you have actual dedicated hardware to doing BitLocker encryption and decryption. The expectations that could also get built directly into CPUs as another subprocessor. But the TLDR on this is, okay, now that drives are faster than they used to be in the past, encrypting and decrypting, which was normally done just by the main CPU, becomes a bigger problem. So as you move more data, because the underlying systems are faster, there's more data to encrypt and decrypt, creating a increase in CPU utilization just for that part of the process. So this doesn't magically unlock anything. This is the OS saying we will now support hardware encryption and decryption for BitLocker. You still need a hardware that's actually going to make use of that. And I'm woefully unknowledgeable about whether that exists yet or not, but at least it's going to be possible. You should be aware, hopefully you already knew this, but Microsoft has been talking about MFA for the M365 Admin Center for a long time. They are supposedly going to start absolutely enforcing that February 9th. I could swear we saw this already in Azure in
Several
general.
tenants have already been forced to do this for quite some time now.
Yeah. I'm a little confused. I kind of thought we already did this. I thought we've already been through this.
Yeah.
We have.
This is one of those catch-22s of Microsoft does the whole, we're going to do this, but also this. There's also to keep in mind, 365 Admin Center is different than portal.azure.com. And because of how the portal infrastructure is built out, they toggle, tease, and change the different CA policies of enforcement. If you actually go and look in your tenant, let me go pull up my test in here real quick.
That is accurate. If you go to portal.azure, it will always force you to do it, but the 365 portal doesn't always
force you to do it. But if you go and you look at conditional access policies, let me go find something here real quick. You'll see there's now Microsoft managed policies here. And so they're basically creating these managed policies that they've been kind of rolling out behind the scenes along the way through various layers of enforcement. And you can actually see there's one Microsoft authentication for admins accessing the Microsoft admin portals that's turned on and forced on behind the scenes to you. So it's there. It's been kind of sort of rolling out, and it depends on when your tenant was created, and it depends on what type of federation you have and all of the other bits and pieces. So it's a little bit of a nothing burger at the same time as also being a little bit of a something to worry about.
Worry about
already been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it feels like we've had this for a while, so I'm just confused as to. But okay, there you go. Anyways, be aware. I guess you might want to take a look if you're using the that.
There are some gotchas, obviously, if you're using like service accounts and things like that to access through that portal without MFA. But if you set up CA policies, you should be able to bypass a lot of that.
Okay. Moment of silence for the MDT. This was deprecated. I mean, it's effectively been deprecated for years, but it is officially end of life. And they, so how do I say this? This is the kind of thing that people actually kind of get concerned about.
Yep.
Because
when a vendor does something,
Well, it's been deprecated for a while, but it's like, okay, well, yeah, sure. I mean, shocking. It should not be surprising to anyone that Microsoft was not investing in creating new features for the for MDT.
Yep.
It's hard enough to get them to update the SDK sometimes alongside Windows. So it's not a shock, but hey, I guess it's January, and internally we decided we were just going to pull all the download links after in 2026 without really telling anyone. So there was no. Sure, there was a deprecation announcement, but there was no, hey, by the way, tomorrow we're going to pull out all of the downloads. So
I'm sure there's a totally trustworthy bit.ly link or something like that floating around to download it still. But
all of there was a, as I understand it, Michael Niehaus had a post on this. As far as I'm aware, anything that's a redirect, right? So there were some short URLs, but even some longer ones I've seen, they don't work. What's funny
what
is
Adam said is accurate. It should still be on archive, the Internet Archive.
Fun.
As far as I'm aware, though, Microsoft went very deep into pulling all of the binaries from it.
Yeah, and what's funny is this page that I'm showing you here, this was essentially the announcement, and they're like, download packages might be removed, but from official distribution. So it's might be. You did it. Yeah. You did it the same day.
Yeah.
What they're saying there, though, is that they may have missed one or two spots. So it could still be out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, there you have it. As somebody said in there, this was the first thing they installed. We all knew it was coming, but I guess January 6th was the day. Less interesting or impactful if you were using Microsoft Lens, which I didn't even know what it was. It's apparently a mobile app to automatically create Office documents from taking pictures. That's deprecated, and you're going to basically think, what is it? What does my note here say? You won't be able to create new scans after March 9th. So if you still have people using Microsoft Lens, it's going to stop working in a couple of months. You can use the OneDrive app, and it does the same thing. So there you have it. In terms of new versions of Windows features coming, this is interesting. They're going this got a certain amount of press. Oh, hey, Microsoft's going to let you uninstall the Microsoft Copilot app on managed devices. Okay, well, that seems like a thing enterprises may want to do or choose to do. Of course, it says it only applies in these very specific conditions, of which is well, the user didn't install it, which apparently they can, and it hasn't been launched for 28 days. So, okay, it's a little funny,
I think
right?
Somewhat similar to that. I think it was Dell who made an announcement that they're not going to start pushing all the Copilot devices on all their new ones in the future. So that's also kind of a big win in a sense.
Yeah, Dell came out and kind of said they did a weird thing, which is basically we actually don't see people using these.
Which I think they're correct for some of it. But
they're our stuff is still going to include it. The hardware is still going to be there. We're still going to sell it. But I don't know. People don't.
We aren't going to invest in continuing to try and build some major product line for it.
Yeah.
Was kind of sort of what they said.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's get into some more security-focused stuff. Again, I had that Palo Alto stuff oddly talk there. Here's a link for that Notepad++ thing that Jordan had mentioned. And very specifically, it was the self-updater. I think it's WooGet or something it calls. Right, so brief history, Notepad++, which hopefully I'm going to suspect most of you at least know what it is if you don't use it. They had built a self-updating mechanism, and then at some point split that updating mechanism into like its own separate project, with the idea that other software might use it beyond Notepad++. There was a flaw found. It is fixed. You will want to ensure that you get Notepad++ up to 8.8.9. If you have self-updater disabled because you're using, I don't know, an unnamed third-party patching solution, not really a problem. But just be aware that that's out there. If you
what number
using,
are you on, Brian?
What number? What?
What number? What new tab page number are you on?
How many tabs in Notepad++ do you have?
Notepad. It's
I think it was like 300 something the last time we asked.
Yeah, I'm 314 right now.
I did a recent pruning and I'm down to 87 now.
I also did a recent pruning, which is why I'm only in the low 300s.
Love it.
Both of you upset me for different reasons.
I actually went back and looked at the ones that are in the tens. I mean, they go back to the day I started. So like the day I started here, I downloaded Notepad++, and started writing like onboarding experiences and like, to get to get our software running in a dev environment. I wrote some notes and it's still there, unsaved. This is why I will die in the Notepad++ hill.
It's saved in a temp file. That counts. Like,
yeah. I mean, and you can search the whole thing. It's glorious. Jordan, I want you to know that I have scrubbed any possible security from this, as you know that I would. There's no token.
I truly believe that Brian went through 500 plus pages.
Yes, I always make sure that I scrub these at the end of each and every day, out of a sign of respect just for you.
What do you mean by scrub, though? Do you like pull up the Notepad++, throw some Windex on the screen and rub it, or? Well,
I copy it and then I paste it into PowerShell so that it gets into the PowerShell command history.
Okay. Sorry for detracting from.
Jordan, do you want to talk about
giving
Rampart
Jordan
again?
a heart attack is half of the reason we're on these meetings.
We can talk about Rampart if you want. I just love seeing you die inside. Okay. Whew. That was good. I love it. If you are using Hewlett Packard's OneView software, and I barely even know what that is, I believe it's based on what I read, it feels like some software-defined networking environment kind of thing. Yeah, it's got a real bad one. Like this is CVS base score 10. Not exactly what you like to see. So if the words Hewlett Packard Enterprise OneView makes any sense to you, you should probably go figure out why that rings a bell and go fix it. Not quite as bad if using any WatchGuard Firebox. I've heard of these people, but that's not the space.
They're actually used in a lot of small government municipalities.
Oh, are they? You would know this.
They're a relatively cheap solution that works really well for VPNs.
Okay.
They're kind of a close, almost Unify level-ish brand of that. If you're in that space, they're super popular for that. They do WatchGuard. They build VPNs as well as pretty solid site-to-site connection stuff. Just don't expect them to handle big fat 40 gigs of massive data between sites. But if you have point-to-point 1 gig internet links and things, works great.
Okay. Anyways, if you have those, if anyone's running those, you don't have to out yourself in chat, but you're going to want to go ahead and get those updated.
You should go patch.
You go fix those. This is a fun one for a couple reasons.
That was a Christmas present.
Right. And this is we had one. Was it SQL? What was the other bleed one that we had before this? But
there was one in React, and then there was this, and then there was SQL.
Okay, yeah, there was a SQL. There was a SQL one bleed. There's something bleed that predated this one.
Heartbleed?
This is basically, I don't know. Sounds right. But the point is, if you're not familiar with MongoDB, this is a newer database technology. We use it here at Patch PC, but we use the hosted version, so it automatically got fixed. Don't worry about that, or automatically got updated by our service provider. But there was a vulnerability in the I was going to say unzipping or the compacting of data that allowed them to basically exfiltrate data in memory. That data in memory might have various codes that you have stored in Notepad++ and wouldn't want shared with the world. And so that was kind of our problem, because now it's kind of
And this is why you have
sophisticated.
as few rights as you do, Brian.
Can't imagine why I can't read Message Center.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a sophisticated attack? Like, somebody's going to have to like query the ever-loving crap in the hope of getting some important data. So is it bad? Yeah, absolutely. And if a nation state actor really wanted to get some data out, they absolutely could. You will notice the date on this. So this is, Jordan likes to remind us that hackers quote unquote never sleep. Some of that's true. That's mostly the meth talking, but also time zones are a thing. And so it was interesting. Here's the guy who actually released this Mongo bleed proof of concept and all that jazz. And literally somebody opened this issue on his repo explaining Mongo bleed. It's like, very shitty time to relieve this. And this is, this is what Jordan would like to share with you. Hackers don't hack on the weekends. They don't only hack between 9 and 5. And they don't hack during Western vacation period. So if you ever want to read a funny back and forth between a bunch of people saying, well, you're an idiot, this guy didn't create the vulnerability. He just told you about it. Sorry that it's, December 24th in your time zone. If you ever want to read funny repartee, there you have it.
And there's been a lot of funny repartee, shall we say, in GitHub issues lately.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll get to that.
I think so. Okay. So Aflac has a 22 million data breach. So it's I don't know if they are international. I know they're here. If you don't know what Aflac is, here in the U.S. at least, it's they share. They sell supplementary insurance for our awesome healthcare and other scenarios. So obviously they are quite popular, and they had a large data breach. So if you're with them, probably breached.
Hey, this is the article I sent you, I think.
This is one you sent me. Absolutely. So in the security realm, the idea is if there is a backdoor, if there's any backdoor, it'll get found. The UK has orders its own. You can explain what Ofcom. I'm going to let you explain what Ofcom is, Jordan. But basically, they want the UK government told one of their departments to explore this idea of an encryption backdoor. And what they were basically saying is, okay, well, we don't really want to be able a man-in-the-middle attack per se. Like, we don't want to. We're not asking you to let us decrypt your encrypted information, but we do want to explore ways of saying, well, before it gets encrypted, can we force people to put a backdoor in for us? That's why I read that. What is Ofcom? Maybe somebody here is from the UK and actually knows what that is.
Basically, they're kind of our equivalent a little bit of like the FCC for communications. They are responsible for the regulation around broadband internet, network traffic, content that goes on basically any content that goes on the wire. They are responsible for how to regulate industries, businesses, and practices to try to protect it and keep it safe. And this was not the only thing that came out from them within the past 2 weeks. They also launched an investigation into X recently. I won't go deep into that, but if you're on the internet, you can go read about it. They are now investigating and trying to push changes and enforce some changes as a result of that. There's some very interesting and awkward connotations around this in regards to what this means from a privacy perspective, as well as from a data sovereignty perspective as well. The implication of this, because of the fact in part that the UK is now totally separate from EU and GDPR, they have their own data privacy components around it. How does this data interact with when somebody engages in a communication pattern between a member state of GDPR or the member state of the EU and a human in the UK? What does that impact then trickle down from a tertiary impact perspective to all of the businesses running communication platforms in between multiple countries? And then how does that ripple out to other organizations across the entirety of the world? This also goes to speak to some of the stuff that we're seeing with Cloudflare recently. There's a lot of play silly games, win silly prizes going on right now at the technology and global reach with how politics and the geostate of the world is interacting. So it's just something to keep a very close and mindful eye on right now.
All right.
Australia is also playing in this. Oh, yeah, somebody else added here about Australia. There was also some new things for Australia recently that came out within the past week as well on this.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And if we have time at the end, I see we have maybe some Brits in the room. I'd love to have you come off mute and tell us your thoughts on this, because obviously you're closer to it than we
live
are,
there.
as boorish Americans that we are. So there's two things here that are very closely related. Both of these are they vulnerable? Like they're reported as kind of vulnerabilities, but basically this is just phishing attacks on getting people to do the thing we've talked about before, which is, can I get somebody to copy and paste some PowerShell into Windows Run, essentially. And so this one they're calling consent fix. And this one is very specifically, there's two I got to get right. This one is very specifically targeted at the hospitality environment, so hotels. And so like it's a phishing email that'll send them to a fake link to something that looks like booking.com. It gives a CAPTCHA, then they gives them this thing that looks like a blue screen of death. And they're told, hey, go, Windows R, Control V, and go ahead and run this, right? So your disinterested
social engineering at its finest.
Yeah, your disinterested teen at America's Best Inn, Lord knows, probably is willing to do that. So that's interesting. Then this one is called Consent Fix. Is basically the same idea, but it's basically doing it all in browsers. So instead of having a phishing email, right? Like you got to send a phishing email, and Jordan has made me watch various security videos on 2x to make sure that I'm, well aware of what a phishing email looks like. But this is actually like, these are ads now. They're basically injecting into legitimate sites. Hey, Cloudflare, you got to put in your valid email, and then it breaks, and they tell you all this jazz. And to me, the idea that this works gets crazy, because they basically like end up putting you into this. They're using the legitimate Entra OAuth flow. But then pointing you to a local host site that doesn't exist, and they're like, "Oh, that's a problem. Go ahead and paste this thing in here. Go ahead and paste that URL into. Let's see if I have it down here. Yeah, go ahead and copy that and paste that in. Well, it contains the token, the auth token, in that URL. So you're literally just giving them the auth token, and those might be short-lived, but it's not going to take them long to react and go do awful things.
Well, and so what's interesting here as well with the consent fix, as well as the previous one, the hotel thing, is the stacking up that's happening of social engineering exploits, of how much better some of the social engineering exploits are getting. One of the things that I was looking at recently was talking about how, I'm going to pick on AI for a second here, where people are now fabricating videos using angles that you're used to seeing for security camera footage. So you expect the quality of the video to be bad because you expect that a security camera is grainy. So you don't look you're less likely to look for components of stuff that's wrong in the image because, well, it's a security camera angle. Like, why would I look for that? The same thing is true for how they're stacking up things like, oh, it's just the blue screen of death screen. Why would I look for a vulnerability in that? It, of course, it's going to tell me a quick step of what I need to do along the way. And we're starting to see more and more stacks of that. And we're going to see more and more stacks of that where people are starting to attack behavior patterns of, I expect this to be fine. Like you mentioned, you get trained on the security stuff. So why wouldn't they attack the security training angle? Let's attack the training angle.
Yeah, I agree. Like when it comes to this attack, it's like, oh yeah, man, absolutely. That is totally going
Somebody's
to
going to get owned.
That is going to work on a
people are going to get owned.
Yeah, that's a non-zero number. But I hope we can all agree that if somebody is presented with this and are told, go and copy and paste this into a form, I want to agree that we can just fire those people as you can't fix that level of stupid. I mean,
it looks somewhat legit.
I think you would be surprised.
But you're
I mean,
going
it's
to,
got the login of
a site.
Microsoft.online.
Yeah, yeah. But they're not even showing the whole thing, right? This thing doesn't exist. Like, so, like, this is what, a 404 page, or like the whole page is like, this is broken or doesn't exist, and it's like,
Mhm.
oh, copy this URL. Like, I don't know. It's just that
Well,
seems a
and
bridge too far for me. But
I'm curious, Brian, did you, in that training that you took, did you pass the tests on the first try, or did you have to take them a couple times?
What I prefer to do when I take security tests is intentionally get every single question wrong, and just iterate towards the right answer, because I know there's some report that gets generated that Jordan looks at that says, hey, my people, they
That's why I have so many meetings with you, Brian.
Select A for everything, see all the ones that were wrong, select B for all those.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
yeah.
And some of you might think I'm joking, but I've actually done that just for shits and giggles. I have totally intentionally been wrong, because sometimes
Learning.
I mean, to be fair, sometimes we just run out of, like, once you get down to D, you're like, I don't know what to put for D, and so you just throw something as answer D, and it's funny, and I'm going to click on funny every single time, and then get told I'm wrong. Okay, not to go back down that rabbit hole because we only got like 15 minutes left here. If you're using Veeam backup and replication, hopefully you already knew this by now, but there's not a great one. This one is 9.0. Sorry, 9.0. It's a 9. So not the worst. It's not a 10, but it sure ain't a 4.9, which we'll talk about later. So if you're using Veeam, go ahead and take a look at that. So this is a new one-ish to me. I actually learned about this recently. N8N, if you're not familiar, if you're not familiar with this, this is a popular platform for, think of it as SCOM for AI, essentially. So it is a workflow thing that's, so the idea that you can connect different scripts to AI input and output and all of that jazz, it's become quite popular. So I call it out because you might have some people, maybe you're not have official flows with this, but some of your people at your company might be futzing with this kind of thing. And they had a very, very 1.10 critical thing in, it's called NA Nightmare. I don't know how to pronounce NAN. I want to do like a Kubernetes thing, but I don't know how to pronounce NAN. But again, if anybody's futzing with that in your org, you should take a look. Target had basically they confirmed that their source code got leaked. So source code for what? I presume it's their website and point of sale systems. But some hacker group stole it and started leaking out sections of the code. And people at Target said, "Oh shit, that looks like our actual code. Like they're not making this up." So that's fun. This one is a 4.9, so it doesn't seem like a big deal. But then, like, I think CISA actually mentioned this one, so I'm a little confused because it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But if the cybersecurity arm of the U.S. thinks it's a big deal, I guess I'll call it out. If you're using Cisco's identity service, and I want to say we had somebody say they did, there's a so-so vulnerability. Doesn't seem that bad. You need to be admin to actually execute this one. So I don't think it's that crazy, but if you hear about it, that's what's going on. WDS, I'm a little fuzzy on the details of this one, but basically the Windows Deployment Service, which is actually I always think of WDS as the thing that does Pixie on any, on Windows 10 or Windows Server. But basically it was, I guess you could use it for more than that, and you could use it for more full end imaging stuff. The crux of it is that it would send the unattended XML across for this hands-free deployment. And in doing so, it did so in an entirely insecure way. There's no, it's not HTTPS, it's just plain text essentially. So this puts you two things. Sometimes you can put important things in the unattended XML that you probably don't want people to know, like usernames and passwords, but also, which is not great, but get it. Sometimes that's what you do. But also there's open to man-in-the-middle attacks that somebody can watch that unattended XML, and it lets you run PowerShell, I'm pretty sure, or scripts and so on and so forth. So not a great look. What they basically did is just turn that whole feature off. And so there's a timeline here that, hey, the updates that came out, the OS updates, I understand, they now have a registry key that you can go set to turn off hands-free deployment. And then later in April, there'll be an update that will turn that on by default, and then you can set a registry to go do the opposite. So
there is a question in the chat that's like pertinent to this one too as well, Brian, and that's with the WDS changes coming in that CVE, will this also impact Configuration Manager if leveraging the Pixie responder without WDS?
Yeah,
I don't know the answer on that one.
I spent a couple minutes looking at it. There was somebody who said, no, it won't impact it. But didn't give any details. But here's actually why I dug into the detail of what they're doing, which is, so the problem here is the thing they're disabling is this hands-free thing, which moves over the unattended XML. The way that Config Manager uses it, I don't think that comes into play. So I don't think Config Manager is using
everything that we're saying. They cannot hear us again,
losing,
apparently.
yeah.
Wah.
So I think we were talking about whether or not this will affect Config Manager.
Yes, the question was whether this WS thing was Config Manager. And I can't say for sure, but I'm actually fairly certain it does not, because Config Manager isn't using the feature that uses WDS to send the unattended XML. Like my understanding of its use of WDS is solely for the Pixie thing. Can it deliver a boot whim? And that is unchanged by this update or the security vulnerability. So I mean, to be clear, holy crap, you should go test this. You definitely should go and enable that reg key and do a quick test of OSD and make sure everything doesn't blow up. But I really don't think it's going to. And at the same time, I could argue you're probably also, if you're not using it, that hands-free thing, then you are also not, what's the right word? You're not subject to the vulnerability. So unless you're using WDS in that particular way, by all means, go shut it off. But at the same time, there's to be a man in the middle, there needs to be a man on both sides in the first place. And so if you're not using that feature at all, it doesn't really matter. So go turn it off now as a test and go on with the rest of your life. Here is the MSRC for that vulnerability, which goes into some detail about what you could do and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to do that here. We've talked a little bit about in the past about open source software and how important it is to basically the whole software ecosystem, and also how difficult sometimes it can be a maintainer of an open source software. This is just a story of this Tailwinds, which apparently they do some CSS templating stuff and got super, super famous enough that this guy was able to create a small team of like 9 people, 4-person engineering team. And the way that a popular business model for that is, okay, well, the code is open source, but we're going to add some extras to it that are not open source, and you're going to learn that by going to our GitHub page and learning about these things. And the crux of this is, to me, was interesting, which is somebody basically did a PR to their group that says, hey, can you make your docs more readable by AI? And they were like, we would love to, but unfortunately, we literally just fired 3 of our 4 engineers because nobody is reading our docs anymore. Nobody's coming to our doc page to figure out problems and then realize that, we will sell them support and solutions for those problems because they're using AI. And so they were like, no, we're not going to do that because we have, we've seen I forget when it was, 40 or 80% decrease.
It was 80%. Yeah, 80%. It was like 80%. The whole GitHub thread is really, really interesting to just go through and read in its entirety.
Yeah, absolutely. Right there. Yeah, it's here. You can follow it from this thing. Yeah, it is an interesting discourse on this situation. And so and I know many of you on this call are not software developers, but to me, the interesting part, that's fun. The interesting part here is as we rely on AI code generation tools, you are increasingly getting away from having to understand the tools that it uses, and the reasons it uses those tools is because they're popular, and it read about them and knows how to use them. But it gets you disassociated from like, oh, I don't need to know about, in this case, Tailwinds or whatever this, and all of the whole software stack that we use today is built on hundreds and thousands of
open source tools.
open source tools, right? We've all seen that chart of this little thing sitting over there, and now AI's even making that. So the premise here is that AI is even making that disassociate even further, and that's probably not great. Okay.
GitHub appears to be having problems with the internet.
Yeah. Maybe they changed producers.
They appear to be having issues with pull requests, API requests, and their entire issues area. They have a major outage in those 3 areas. They are currently investigating.
Fantastic. Could that have anything to do with what this next article is there? I just see Cloudflare, and immediately I'm thinking it's probably
no. This is slightly different. So this is one that Jordan alluded to, which is Italy basically came up with this this law that said, hey, we need you to block any site within 30 minutes, I think. And Cloudflare said, well, that's not really how this works. That's not how any of this works. And then Italy said, well, okay, well, fine. We will give you a 14 million euro fine. And Cloudflare said, well, that's unpleasant. Now, Jordan, I'm going to presume you have some thoughts on this. But here's the website. And then here's like their CEO. I know you all may not want to go on Twitter and X, but this is an interesting take. I'm not saying I'm not endorsing or saying what he's saying is true, but like it's an interesting problem, right?
Yeah, so it's a super interesting issue, and just to be clear, like it's an awkward, odd thing because the organization that like leveraged the fine both is and isn't a governing body. It's very strange about the entirety of it, and there's not enough detail to make any deterministic statement around it yet. So it's still a little bit noisy on it, and there's tons of noise. But what's odd is we're running into this challenge now where we have this infrastructure that the whole world largely, for the most part, shares bits and pieces of. And Cloudflare has now absorbed enough impact and momentum. It's kind of in the very first stages. It used to be that when we had Monopoly and stuff like that, monopolies tended to be in little tiny corners. They were in a country because they were dealing with physical things. And now we have Cloudflare has achieved a certain point of mass momentum where they effectively are starting to rapidly encroach towards a monopoly of data on the internet out there in the wild. And what basically has happened here is that some of this started as is, if you read in the comments in the thread, is talking about, weirdly enough, piracy around football is where some of it kind of sort of started, but then rapidly devolved into a bunch of other stuff.
Now, when you say football, you need to translate
soccer.
that for.
I actually mean soccer. As a side note, I was calling it what it actually is.
I agree. We have both a British and U.S. audience, so translation is needed.
Amazing. And so there's this very awkward tension now of we have companies that exist in one location trying to service up a public service that's trying to be regulated by unique individual instances, but is also trying to do it in a way that doesn't understand how the underlying technology works either. For example, the whole idea of like, well, within 30 minutes, you need to take this thing offline. Like, we'd love to do that, but that's just not how DNS works.
Yeah.
First of all, it just doesn't work that way. And in fact, we found out rather catastrophically a couple of weeks ago that DNS is an old technology. It's 40 years old, people. And like the people who helped write it early on, they didn't even fully understand it. There was a change that got shipped by Cloudflare like 2 weeks ago. They went, oops, C names versus A records. Turns out when you update the order of like how lookups and chained lookups work, nobody actually understands how that works anymore. And it breaks things horribly. So the idea of how fining people or trying to fine stewards of the public internet or public spaces to try to point directionality of it is a very weird concept in general. and that whole "may you live in interesting times" thing is definitely on the horizon of like, how do companies deal with this too? Because let's say that Cloudflare tries to go through with this is the other half of it. Let's say that Cloudflare just goes, because what they basically said in the article here is like, well, what if we just stopped serving responses to anything from Italy?
Right.
Well, then if you're a company that uses Cloudflare as the front end of DNS for the entirety of your service and MTLS back end into your services, how do you serve customers in that entire country and region? You don't.
What if we just did?
You don't.
You just don't.
Yep.
So the impact and the tertiary then impact is very big of the customers of Cloudflare who are paying Cloudflare to do it because they don't want them to do that because they can lose entire market segments. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very interesting to think about on the broad scale.
Okay. All right. I love it. Let's move on. We're almost done. You can see if anyone has any questions. I don't have all the details here other than this got posted recently. It's not this guy's actually presented at MMS MOA apparently.
I'm pretty sure
config manager.
Yeah.
Yes. Pretty sure what, Jake? It's the different. I know, right? It's the different.
Yeah, it's very similar. Yep.
Yeah. I made the same mistake. But anyways, there's been various like storming the castle sessions about, hey, if you can certain configurations of config manager can leak data, so on and so forth. This guy basically went and wrote a tool that combines a lot of stuff from the last few years, and it has a script that will go ahead and it'll map out your config manager environment and then try and figure out certain configurations. It'll see if it can get into the database. A bunch of interesting things. It is literally says it's a 45-minute read. I will give them credit. The initial TLDR they had was completely indecipherable for a non-security person. And so I reached out and said, hey, what if you rewrote this? And so it's actually interesting. I might try and get them to come on and talk about this tool. But if you ever wanted a security tool you can run for a config manager to tell you, hey, you have these possible vulnerable configuration, this would be probably worth your time to go take a look at. And lastly, this is it. What's new? Not a lot new in the config manager land, but this one thing is new that we got this week or last week, which is we got PowerShell scripts for Win32 apps. Now, if you were in the enterprise app management space, they had that in there last year, I think already. But there you go. You can, and very specifically what this says is instead of a install command, you can have install script. So if that's a thing you want or need, there you have it. Okay, I think we had some questions. We're over time, but we'll sit here and we will answer questions as long as we can. If you need to go, totally understand. Not going to be offended at all. Thanks for wasting a perfectly good hour here with us. And of course, we will see you again in whatever the next month is. I think February. Is it February? That's how that works. So, Jake, were there any questions? I think
there's currently just one left in the Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, I think last month you guys suggested that we might want to hold off on the SCCM updates to 2509 due to some issues. Is this true? And if so, what are the issues and expected resolutions?
Yeah. So I haven't heard back from the team, but if you are, that only would apply to people that want to do third-party patching from Config Manager and you are in co-management. In that scenario, I think they brought back the whole scan source, dual scan, screwing up the registry keys. Mm-hmm. So those that have updated, I'd be interested to know if you're in that scenario, again, using third-party patching from Config Manager and whether, and you're co-managed with updates moved to Intune. So it's a very specific set of scenarios. If you're in there, our testing says maybe you might have some problems, but it very specific. It goes back to partially setting the scan source registry keys and values. The team confirmed the issue, said they were going to do a hot fix. I was hoping they were going to do that before they did the GA rollout, but that I haven't heard from them during the holidays, so I don't have an update on that. But again, only that very specific scenario would you be impacted?
And I do see someone did comment on it saying we've seen application deployments continue to fail. It's like the application cycle won't run on the client, so that kind of coincides with what you said. Makes sense.
I mean, I've heard people having app deployment issues. Like I've heard of a handful of issues post 2509, but none of those have to do with this, right? Because even what we're talking about with third-party patching isn't the app model. So to be like super duper clear, like what we're talking about is, are you consuming, are you deploying updates or third-party patches through the software update mechanism? Your software update mechanism for third-party patches. I will, Michael. But I thought they were going to release it already. Part of my concern is like I've talked about it a couple times, but we've only seen this we had one customer reach out and said they had this issue. We confirmed it in our own testing, but I have not heard from many people saying, hey, we actually did to 2509. We're using a third-party patch provider like PatchMyPC or somebody else. And it broke things. And specifically what you would see break is that you expect first-party patching to come from Windows Update or Intune, WooMoo, and all of a sudden they come from WSUS instead. I think that's the behavior you would expect to see if you have this issue. And I'm surprised that I haven't heard more people report it. And so it questions my whole understanding of reality, because again, we have seen it and tested that it sets these reg keys. But maybe there's just not a lot of people in that exact scenario. But I don't know. I'm confused. So I don't really know if I should make a huge deal of this, because I expected people to come out of the woodwork and say, holy crap, the sky's falling. And that hasn't happened. So thanks again, everyone, for wasting a perfectly good hour with us. We will see you next month.
Oh, we're back. Backstreet's back. Yeah.
Stop it. Stop it.
Right.
You shush.
Backstreet.
All right. Well, that's one way to kill your YouTube live stream. Okay, let's get started.